Welcome to English 4E Grade 12 Workplace English course. This is Term 1B and we are on Class 4. Today we're looking at assignments K5 and K6. We'll be looking at simple and compound sentences. I don't know if we're going to get to incomplete and run-on sentences. That might cover next day. Looking at contact information. Okay, if you want to talk to me while I'm in the studio, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to talk to me when I'm in the office, 1-800-667-3703, and my extension is 2211. You can fax your work to us at 1-800-463-7852. You can also send work to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That's a great way to do it because the secretary can log that you submitted the work, plus then we have a copy of it in our computer and it can be pulled up even if you drop out of the course now and come back to it a few years later, which can be really helpful. Please always make sure that your full name, the course name, the assignment number and name are on each assignment. If an assignment asks you for a rough and a good draft, please label which one is which and include them both in the same email because I often compare them to see how they have changed. If you need to take a photograph of an assignment, first make sure it's really clear and crisp so that your writing can be read, and then send it as an attachment in the email. Occasionally there's an option to just email it right over without putting it as an attachment, but when you do that it's kind of hard to print off and it doesn't always show properly on the computer when we go to look at it. Okay, so this is my rough plan for the week. There is no guarantees things happen. The plan for today is that we're going to go through assignment 5 and 6. Tomorrow I think we should get through assignment 7. Wednesday we should be able to get through assignment 8. And then Thursday we should be able to get through assignment 9. That's the plan anyways. Alright, for today's assignments, we're going to be learning the main parts or criteria for a correct simple sentence. Understand and identify what constitutes an incomplete sentence. Apply this understanding to fix incomplete sentences. Create simple sentences of your own. Understand the definition of a compound sentence. Understand how to create a compound sentence using coordinating conjunctions and a comma. Understand what a run-on sentence is and the two main ways they are created. And I don't think we'll be getting to the run-on sentence stuff. If we do, that will be lovely. Down below where it says expectations met, that's just kind of for me. It just tells me the numbers of the Ontario curriculum documents that I am meeting by this lesson. Alright, so I'm going to kind of tell you the assignment and then we're going to teach all the information that you need to know to be able to do the assignment. So key question number 5 is about simple and compound sentences. They want you to write 5 simple sentences and then 5 compound sentences of your own that show your understanding of each type of sentence. These sentences can be related in terms of subject and verb if you wish, which I'll show you in an example. Remember that the conjunctions must be joining 2 complete clauses. A complete clause has a subject and a verb and can stand alone on their own as a simple sentence. Not every sentence counts as a compound sentence just because it uses one of the coordinating conjunctions. For example, if you wrote, I love fish and pizza, that's not a compound sentence. Because in this case, the conjunction and is just joining fish and pizza, not 2 whole clauses. And I mention that because I've had that misunderstanding come up a few times. Hang on a sec. Okay, so the basic concepts you're going to need to be able to do this assignment is understand what's a simple sentence, understand what's a compound sentence, what is a subject, what is a verb, and what is a conjunction. If you understand all those things, then you're good to go. If you don't, that's what the lesson is about. Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, is this a... Not sure where that came from. I'm gonna kind of see here. Can I hide that slide? Not sure what it was there for. Might have been kind of just slipped itself in. Alright, so simple sentences. A simple sentence has to have a subject. The subject is a noun or a pronoun. It also needs to have a predicate, which can be just a verb all by itself, or a verb plus other words connected to the verb. A simple sentence can also be considered a main or what they call an independent clause. It can be quite short, things like dogs bark, Thunder roars. It is a windy day. But a simple sentence can be long too. And I mention this because sometimes people think when they've written a long sentence, oh, it must be more complicated. But it's not grammatically, okay? So John threw the football down the field into the goal. Okay, so John is your subject, threw is your verb, and all the rest of these words are really words that are explaining how, where, when, whatever that he threw the football. So it really is still a simple sentence, even though it's longer. The gnarled old willow tree provided a resting place next to the river for many travelers. Okay, so what's my subject? The tree. The gnarled old willow are all kind of the descriptors describing the tree, but tree is my subject. And then my verb, provided. Okay? All the rest is giving you more information about what the tree provided. Okay? Now, a simple sentence can also have two subjects. Like if I say, the boys and girls played soccer together, boys and girls are both subjects. Sometimes they call it a compound subject. If I said, sleepless nights and long work days had the poor student reeling with tiredness. Nights and work days are your two subjects. A simple sentence can also have two verbs. The grade 1 class climbed and played around the park. The football team ran laps and completed drills all afternoon. They still count as simple sentences because they still only have one main subject overall and a predicate. So the compound subject, the 2 and 1, still counts as kind of one main subject essentially. What makes an incomplete sentence? An incomplete sentence can be short or it can be long, okay? It usually means that it's missing one or more of these three main criteria. It's missing a subject, like there's no noun or pronoun that's the topic. It's missing a verb, like the action, helping, or state of being verb. Or it doesn't express a complete thought. So I'm going to give you some examples of some sentences that are missing a subject. Am walking to the store to pick up some milk. Okay, who is? Because it says am only ever goes with the word I. Okay? It doesn't go with any other pronoun. I am walking to the store to pick up some milk. And I would change the big A and turn it to a little a. I'm not going to do that just because I want to be able to save this for later. Failed the test. Who failed the test? The whole class? My friend? Me? Who failed the class? I'm going to say the whole class. The whole class failed the test. Plugged my ears so I couldn't hear her. All right, here's a tricky one. There is a subject. The problem is this is a sentence that has two parts. I plugged my ears. There's your first part. I plugged my ears so I couldn't hear her. This is actually one of those compound sentences. So it has one subject in the first sentence and one subject in the second sentence. It has a verb in the first sentence and a verb in the second sentence. So that's why that one's a little bit tricky. Swimming as fast as I could, landed on the shore. Okay, why is that incomplete? It does have the word I, right? But just like this one, it's kind of in a section of its own. I still need a subject over here all by itself. Swimming as fast as I could, oops, sorry, didn't hit the I there. I landed on the shore. So it had one subject because it's a two-part sentence, it needed two subjects. So those are some examples. Okay, so let's just create some simple sentences. Occasionally, people make this tougher on themselves by making really complicated sentences. Unless you feel like you're a really strong writer, you don't need to do that. You get the same marks whether it's a simple sentence or a complicated sentence as long as it is complete. So, rain. What could I say about rain? I could say something really simple like, I like rain. I've got my subject, I've I've got my verb like. That is all I need. Okay, fog. Fog makes it hard to drive. Fog is my subject. Makes is my verb. What does it do? It makes it hard to drive. Wind. What can I say about the wind? The wind blew my kite away. Okay, the wind is my subject. Blew is my verb, and then it's telling me what happened to the verb. Now, if you'll notice, I've been putting the last two sentences, I put it as the subject, but you don't have to. It could be here, I is the subject, and we're talking about what I like. What do I like? I like rain. So it doesn't have to be the subject here. It's just kind of the topic, which is a little bit different. I think snow, something super simple. Snow is cold. Yay, easy. Easy peasy. All right. The sun is setting behind the mountains. All right. The sun is my subject. Is setting is my verb phrase. And then behind the mountains. These are all simple. Your best bet is to, you don't need to be short to be simple, but it can make it easier for you as a writer. Okay, let's take a look at the next bit. These sentences are missing a verb or a part of a verb. How could they be fixed? My favorite teacher, Mrs. Johnson. I could simply say, instead of putting a comma here, my favorite teacher is Mrs. Johnson. And that's my verb. Bright, beautiful snowflakes up in the sky. That's got so many words it almost sounds like a sentence, but it's not quite. I could say bright, beautiful snowflakes are up in the sky. Or I could say I see bright, beautiful snowflakes up in the sky. Either way. All the books neatly on the shelves. Let me think. I need a verb. All the books neatly on the shelves. Let me see. Fell over in the earthquake. Sorry, kind of a crazy sentence, but it works. So all the books neatly on the shelves is kind of your noun phrase, and then fell over is your verb. The tall jack pine swaying in the breeze. This one could be changed just by fixing the verb. I could say the tall jack pine is swaying in the breeze or was swaying, but swaying all by itself doesn't quite work and it ends up creating an incomplete sentence. So I'm going to say was swaying in the breeze. After midnight, wolves at the door. Ooh. I could say something simple like the wolves are at the door, or I could say what the wolves at the door are doing. After midnight, wolves at the door howled and whined. Ooh. So I added a verb. Okay, that's all you have to do for those ones. Add the verb. This is, I think, the hardest one when it doesn't express a complete thought. One way this can happen is when students use different forms of the verb to be, but they don't finish the sentence. A state of being verb must have a word afterwards that describes or renames the subject. That's what it's there for. So I can't just say the old red barn was. I have to be telling you what's going on with the old red barn. The old red barn was, I think, being repainted. Sorry, my typing's terrible. Being repainted. The little girl is, what is she? There's a subject, there's a verb, but I have to tell you what she is. The little girl is, let's see, cold. It's been simple. Angry birds were, what? Cawing at the squirrel. Okay? So whenever you have a state of being verb, those are the am, is, are, were, was. You have to have a word after it that finishes the thought. You can't just kind of leave your listener or your reader hanging. Another type of sentence that might express an incomplete thought are sentences that imply there's another event or action or condition about to happen or that existed, but they don't tell you what it is. If you ever do that again, what's going to happen? If you ever do that again, what are you going to do? you have to finish the sentence. You ever do that again? I'm leaving, right? Before we go to the store, okay, well, what needs to happen? Before we go to the store, I need to take some money out of the bank, right? After you finish, something's going to happen, but what? I haven't told you. So when you're having this kind of sentence, you have to be careful that if it's a two-part sentence that you've included both parts. All right. So we're going to look at these sentences and you tell me, my imaginary audience, are these sentences complete or are they incomplete? And if they are incomplete, what are they missing? I couldn't wait for summer vacation. Okay, so I is your subject, couldn't wait is your verb, and it does express a complete thought. So I would say that it is complete. Let me think. All right, good. My brothers, John and Peter. Well, that is incomplete because you've told me who the sentence is about, but you haven't told me what they're doing. So that's, well, let me just do part of it. That is incomplete. The new furniture has arrived at the store. So new furniture is my subject, has arrived is my verb, and the whole sentence does tell me a complete thought. I'm not confused when I read that, so I'm good. Signed up for the hockey team. Well, I don't know who signed up for the hockey team. Is it a guy, a girl, the grade 5s? I'm not sure. It's incomplete because you haven't told me who or what. My subject. Even if I wanted to, okay, that does not express a complete thought. There's a second half to that sentence that hasn't been stated. Today is a beautiful day. Today is my subject, is my verb, and I've completed my thought. Today is a beautiful day. It's a complete sentence. My mother always said, well, you aren't telling me what they said, so that's incomplete. You can't write a sentence that implies you're about to tell me a whole bunch of stuff and then just finish partway through. Ate at the new pizza place. All right, this starts with a verb and it doesn't tell me who ate at the new pizza place. Therefore, that is an incomplete sentence. It hasn't given me all the information I need. Ran my fastest time ever yesterday. Okay, who is doing the running? It's going to be I because they've used the word my. I ran my fastest time. But I can't just assume it. I have to actually put it in there. So that sentence is also incomplete. Okay. So to do a compound sentence, you need a conjunction. And conjunctions are joining words. There are three main different types or categories of conjunctions. The first one is coordinating conjunctions. They can be used to join words or phrases or sentences, and there's only 7 of them. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And then there are subordinating conjunctions. They can only be used to join sentences or clauses together. There's a lot of this type of conjunction. Some of the examples that are used pretty typically are things like because, after, although, as if, before, how, if, since, than, though, unless, until, when, where, and while. But there's a lot more than that. Those are just the ones that get used most commonly. And then correlative conjunctions. These type of conjunctions always work in pairs, and they can join words or phrases or sentences together. Some examples of those are things like if then, either or, neither nor, not only, but also. So to make a compound sentence, you can only need the coordinating conjunction, okay? And you have to be joining 2 simple sentences, right? We talked about that, fanboys. You usually put a comma right in front of the conjunction. So like, for example, I might say, he loves pizza, comma, and he likes hot dogs. Okay, he loves pizza could stand on its own, and he likes hot dogs could stand on its own. If I just said he loves pizza and hot dogs, it wouldn't be a compound sentence. Both sides on the other side of the conjunction have to have a subject, he, and have to have some sort of verb. So on this side, you've got he loves, and here we have he likes. Now, the different conjunctions have different meanings. You can't just use any conjunction. You have to make sure that if you're joining two simple sentences, that you're using the right conjunction that conveys the kind of idea you're trying to convey, right? Like, for is usually used to explain the reason for something. I wanted to go downtown at noon, for the carnival was setting up in the morning. And is probably the most neutral one. You can join just about any two sentences together using and. I love to go camping, and I look for places near a lake to go canoeing too. Nor is when you're saying no to at least two choices. I don't really enjoy going to the ballet, nor do I like hearing opera either. All right. But is when you have one sentence that's opposed or is in contrast to the other sentence. I liked the new guy at work, comma, but he just wasn't interested in me. So she likes him, but he doesn't like her. Or gives you two choices. I want to go to the movies later on, or I could go shopping at the mall. Yet is similar to but. It still has that idea of two sentences that are opposed to each other. I wanted to tell her I loved her, yet I could not seem to find the courage to speak. So is like for in that you use it when you're trying to explain the reason for something. I had a hockey tournament all weekend, so I was finishing up my homework on Thursday night. Now, coordinating conjunctions can trick you because they can be used to only join or a word or a phrase. So I've had a few students hand me in something and it used the word for, but it didn't use it where both sides were a complete sentence. And when you do that, then you don't end up with a compound sentence. If you're only joining two words or a couple of phrases, you haven't made a compound sentence. So here are some examples of how that might look. I like pizza and hot dogs. It's a simple sentence, but it's not a compound sentence because pizza and hot dogs are two words. They're not two different sentences. We could swim or bike. Same thing. That is not a compound sentence. It is a valid simple sentence, right? That's fine, but it doesn't work as a compound sentence. The principal does not approve of cheating nor lying. All right, that's a nice long sentence, but it's still really only a simple sentence. I've told you that the principal doesn't approve cheating nor lying. It's just words. I haven't joined two whole sentences together. The class likes reading books and drawing pictures. Now this is longer, but I've joined phrases. Reading books is the one phrase. Drawing pictures is the other phrase. I haven't got a subject on both sides, so it can't be a compound sentence. We could go see a movie or go eat at a restaurant. Again, go see a movie is one phrase. Go eat at a restaurant is a second phrase. But the second phrase here would need a subject if I was making a compound sentence, and it doesn't have one. So these ones, even though they use and, or, nor, they're using those conjunctions, but they're not compound sentences. A compound sentence has to join two simple sentences to create one bigger sentence. Yep, we did that. Oh, how can you tell if it's only words or a phrase and not a whole clause or a sentence? Look on both sides of that conjunction to make sure there's a subject and verb. If there's only a subject on one side, it's not a valid compound sentence. So here I've got, oh, see, I can see something fell apart here. Hang on. Oh, hang on. There we go. I love to go camping and I like to go hiking too. All right. I is my subject and I've got a verb, love to go here. And on the other side of the conjunction, I is my subject and like to go is my verb there. So this is a valid compound sentence. We could go to Subway or McDonald's. All right, so on this side I've got we as my subject and could go as my verb. But on this side I don't have a subject and I don't even have a verb. I'm just telling you where we're going. So this would not be a conjunction. I'm going to put like kind of a little X there. No, 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 does not count. I enjoy watching hockey, but my son likes to watch football. Is that a compound sentence? Well, on this side I've got a subject, I, and I've got my verb, enjoy watching. And on this side I've got my subject, my son, and then I've got my verb, likes to watch. So yeah, this one is a compound sentence. I saved up money for Christmas presents. All right, on this side I've got I as my subject, saved up is my verb form. But on this side I only have Christmas presents. I don't have a noun for my subject. I guess presents is my noun, but I don't have a subject noun. And I don't have a verb. So this is not a compound sentence. It does not count. Beautiful yet dangerous. The spy strode in. All right, on this side I just have an adjective, beautiful. So already, without even looking at this side, this can't be a compound sentence because I don't have a subject and I don't have a verb. On this one, he hid the presents so he could surprise the kids. He is my subject, hid is my verb. On the other side is so, he is my subject, could surprise is my verb. So yep, this one counts as a compound. I don't have an easy check mark, so if it's got an X, it's wrong. The ones that don't have an X are right. Okay? Okay, so now that we kind of understand, hopefully, compound sentences, let's try and make some compound sentences. Okay, that's what you're going to have to be doing for your assignment. Okay, so I just chose a transportation theme to make it easy. Let's see. I'm going to start with and because it's one of the easiest conjunctions to use. Let's see. What can I say? I like to bike, comma, and I like to go swimming. Okay. Remember to put the comma at the end of that first simple sentence, then move right into using your conjunction, and then put your second simple sentence. Now, I happen to have the word I here, so it's a capital, but if it was another word like he likes to go swimming, it wouldn't be a capital, okay? Truck. Think here. The truck drove down the road, but it swerved when it hit the ice. Ooh, this is a complicated one. But it swerved dangerously. I'm going to make it a little bit simpler, make it sure I can show it to you. Okay. So truck is my subject, drove is my verb. Now I've got the word but here, that's my conjunction. And on the other side of but, I've got my subject, it is my subject. And then swerved is my verb. Plane, I want to talk about the plane. Let me see. My son liked planes. Or, no, I don't like that one. Liked planes. I know. So he could pretend to be a pilot. Okay. My son liked planes. My son is my subject. Liked is my verb. Here's my conjunction. I've got a little comma right before the conjunction. He is my next subject. And then could pretend to be a pilot. Could pretend and to be are my verbs. I'm not going to do the last one just because we're getting kind of on to the next one, I think. Once you're finished creating your sentences for the assignment, be sure to check them. Do you have at least 5 simple and 5 compound sentences? And it's really helpful if you label them so I know which one's supposed to be which, okay? Because then I can help you if you've made a mistake. But if you haven't labeled them, I'm just kind of making a guess as to what you're hoping for. Simple. I went fishing yesterday. Is that a simple sentence? Yes. I is my subject. Went is my verb. Went fishing is my verb, really. Compound. I went fishing yesterday, but I didn't catch any fish. So we already know the first part counts as a sentence because it's the same one. Here's my conjunction. And then I've got I again, so there's my second subject, and didn't catch is my second verb. So yes, that's a valid compound sentence. The presents were all wrapped up. Does that count as a simple sentence? Presents is my subject, were is my verb. Yes, that one works. Compound. The presents were all wrapped up for Christmas. Well, here's my conjunction. And on the other side of the conjunction, I need a subject and a verb. I don't have it. So this is not, it is not a compound sentence. It did use one of the conjunctions, for, right? But remember that it's got to be equal. So on this side, there's got to be a subject and a verb, and on this side, there's got to be a subject and a verb. Simple, I went to the movies. Yes or no? I is the subject, went is the verb. Yep, that works. Compound, I went to the movies after I finished my homework. Well, we already know the first part is a simple sentence. I haven't got a comma there, so that's a problem. After. After isn't one of the coordinating conjunctions. So it's a subordinating conjunction, but it won't make a compound sentence because I can only use those 7 conjunctions to make compound sentences. So this one actually is also a no. It sounds like it's a compound, but when you look at the conjunction after, that isn't one of the conjunctions we're allowed to use to join 2 sentences together. Oh, we're going to skip over that. I don't need that for this. Nope, we're going to skip over that too. I don't want to talk about incomplete sentences because I think it'll just kind of mix things up. Hang on a sec. Okay, so key question number 6. This is journal writing, 10 marks. Write a paragraph consisting of at least 7 sentences on one of the topics found below on this page. A paragraph is a group of closely related sentences dealing with a single topic or idea. The first sentence, called the topic sentence, should state the main idea of the paragraph, and all the sentences in a paragraph should have good subject and verb agreement. And it should also make use of the other parts of speech. I think you could hardly help it, to be honest. This will ensure that a paragraph is interesting and effective. Some antecedents and some pronouns should be used, and this will be an opportunity to express your thoughts and feelings. All right, so you have 4 topics you can choose. One, they've got summer 2022. I would say you could use summer 2024 instead. That would make more sense. A trip you've taken, an elder in your community, and what you hope to gain from the course. So we're going to talk about paragraphs here. We went over this the other day, the hamburger format, right? We start with a topic sentence. There's a whole bunch of good, juicy details in the middle. And then we finish with a sentence that kind of echoes our topic, okay? The sentences in the middle, there's more of them. There's usually at least 4 or 5, can be more. And they're going to be your main interesting ideas, right? If you just are vague all the way through, it's not really going to work. Okay, so here is a sample paragraph. When you choose a post-secondary institution to attend, there are many issues to consider. That's your first sentence, and it's introducing the idea that there's a lot of things to think about when you're choosing some place to go after high school. And then I start to discuss what are those things we need to think about. Those are my body paragraph or all my supporting details. You must consider the type of program you wish to pursue and determine which schools offer the most valuable course of study for your goals. You and your family must discuss the relative costs of various types of programs, deciding which schools are affordable to you. Your academic ability must be considered in terms of competition and grade requirements. Like some schools are very popular and there's a lot of people trying to get in. Your personality must be taken into consideration as well. Are you prepared to work hard and be committed to doing well in your courses? Do you prefer large classes or small? Are you prepared to move if necessary to a bigger community or city? Do you function best in a structured or loose setting? Choosing a post-secondary institution is a serious endeavor encompassing many different elements regarding the school, your goals, your abilities, and your preferences. Okay, so this last little part, choosing, that whole section there is my closing sentence. And like I said, up here is my opening sentence. Okay, and they always echo each other. Here I talk about there's lots of issues to consider. Here I kind of summarize what those issues were. Okay, so the 4 topics we already talked about, and summer 2024, a trip you've taken, an elder. If you're not sure how to pick one, I would take a look at each one and think about whether you have anything to say. If you come up completely blank, take a look at the next one. You can also think about what topic you think is most interesting to write about. Sometimes what I would do is, oh, I like this one and this one. I'd take 5 minutes and write down some ideas. Whichever one I had more for is the one I would pick, because it'll be easier to write if you've got more ideas. So brainstorming ideas. I'm going to role model how to brainstorm ideas. For my paragraph, I'm going to select a trip I've taken, and I'm going to think about possible activities or people or places I visited that I'd like to mention in my paragraph. So this part is just for you. You don't have to hand this in to me. It's just kind of giving you a starting spot so that you have your ideas down and then you do the writing. Because a lot of times there can be, if you're trying to think of all your ideas and think of how to say it and think of grammar and think of spelling, that is putting a lot of strain on what we call your working memory. If you think of your working memory is like your desk, right? And if you've got, you don't have an endless desk, right? Your desk doesn't your entire house. So you don't want to have so many things on your desk that you lose track of what's happening. So sometimes writing some ideas down first can really help you stay kind of focused and not get overwhelmed. So the ideas I wrote down were my trip to California, flew with my cousin, 12 years old, stayed with my Aunt Megan, visited Disneyland, fireworks, Six Flags Park, Venice Beach by the ocean, a terrible sunburn, swam in the ocean, orange tree in the backyard, visited cousins and my other aunt and uncle. Okay, this only makes sense to me, but I don't need to spend my time writing all my sentences here. I'm going to do that shortly. This is just to kind of jog my memory and think about what I want to look at. That's probably plenty to get me through a whole paragraph. I only need 7 sentences and I've got at least 7 topics, so I'm good. If I wanted to, I could also go through and write numbers next to each point, deciding which order I want to talk about them. Because just because I thought about them in that order doesn't mean that's the best order to write about them. So maybe I want to put the events in chronological order. So like, oh, here's what I did first in my trip. Here's what I did second. And then I'd want to put the numbers down so I don't get mixed up. In this case, I'm picking a trip that was ages ago. I don't really remember what order things happened in. So I am not going to worry about putting my ideas in a chronological order, at least. You can make your own choices as to what you want to do. You don't have to do chronological. You could also do it in terms of importance, like the least important to the biggest importance, or biggest importance to the smallest importance. And as I was writing this and thinking about things, I initially thought I wouldn't number my points, but then I realized, it would probably help me figure out what order I wanted to talk about. I'm going to start and end chronologically, I think, but in the main body, I'm going to go by like what was most important to what was least important. Oh, well, they've said smallest to greatest. We'll see. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here's the order I wrote my ideas down in. I already just said that. And then I changed it all around. So I started with, I flew with my 13-year-old cousin out of Detroit, Michigan to California. I was met at the airport by Aunt Meg. I wanted to talk about my first impressions of California and my aunt's friends, meeting other cousins and my other aunt for the first time, visiting Venice Beach, swimming in the ocean and got a terrible sunburn, eating out at fancy restaurants, watching inappropriate movies, visiting amusement parks, being treated as a grown-up, and carrying away the feeling of being loved. So I thought about actually a whole bunch of extra details. I don't know that I'm going to need them all, but they crossed my mind, so I wrote them down just in case, okay? It's usually easier to have too many things to write about than to have too little. Because you can always edit, or you can always just write a longer piece. That's fine too, right? It's never a minimum. It just means that If I say write 6 sentences, that's not your maximum, that's your minimum, right? For this kind of thing, I want to write my opening sentence. And I don't want to just dive right into the topic. I want to give you kind of a general sentence that lets you know what this paragraph is going to be about. I often like to brainstorm a bunch of different opening sentences. It's kind of a great way to practice being able to share the same information in different ways, and then I can look at them and pick which one is the best one. So I'm going to show you some possible opening sentences for my paragraph. Okay? And here's a whole bunch. I wrote a whole bunch. I don't know why. Probably went overboard here. Sorry, guys. Oh, gosh. I think I'm going to run out of time. Hang on. We'll see how we go. I will always remember my trip to California I took when I was 12 years old. Okay. I have been many places across North America, but my trip to California holds a special place in my heart. That's a little more interesting. We traveled a lot when I was a kid, but the best vacation ever was to California. Yeah, although it implies my family was with me and they weren't. We traveled a lot when I was a kid, but the time I got to travel without any adults was something special. Yeah, that works for me. I like that one. And my family traveled a lot when I was young, but the time I got to fly to another country without a parent is the vacation that I treasure. I find that one kind of wordy. As a kid, I loved to travel with my parents each summer, but I was amazed the summer I got to travel without them. How do you pick the best sentence? There's no hard or fast rules. I'm going to pick the sentence that I think makes the reader want to find out more or that I think is more interesting. I might change it later, but for right now, I'm going to choose the last sentence I created. Okay. Now, to go on, I'm going to keep looking at my point form notes and sort of take them one by one and turn them into an interesting sentence. And I wanted to show you how many different sentences you can create out of the same details, because I get the impression for some people this is the hardest part. So they look at a point form note like flew with my 13-year-old cousin out of Detroit, Michigan to California, and they turn it into a sentence the quickest way they can think of. I flew with my 13-year-old cousin out of Detroit, Michigan to California. And that is a sentence. It's a valid sentence. I don't know how interesting it is, though, right? And part of writing is not just kind of grinding through the exercise. It's learning how to write sentences and paragraphs that people want to read, that they enjoy reading, okay? So here are some possible examples that I might use when I'm talking about the next little bit of this paragraph. The vacation started when they dropped us off at the Detroit airport, just 12-year-old me and my 13-year-old cousin flying all by ourselves to our crazy aunt in California. I still can't believe that our parents let a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old fly across the country from Detroit to California just to visit our fun-loving aunt. I will never forget how grown-up I felt getting on a huge plane in the middle of the busy Detroit airport without my parents, but only my 13-year-old cousin by my side. Now, all of these sentences have the same information, but some of them add more details, or they provide a different point of view, or they explain my feelings, or they help to kind of set the mood of the paragraph and of the event. I could also have added a whole lot more description if I wanted to. Like, the airport was so huge and busy. I felt a little overwhelmed, but that was nothing compared to getting on that enormous plane with so many people. I couldn't imagine how the weight would get off the ground. By the way, it's a run-on sentence. I haven't fixed it. Or I could have added dialogue. The moment we were on the plane, I whispered to my cousin, "I can't believe they really let us go." Okay, so you don't have to do this for every sentence, but sometimes doing it when you're feeling stuck or at the beginning can kind of be a real help to getting those creative juices flowing and being able to write more interesting sentences. Okay, so I kind of went through bit by bit. We've kind of read that part. It was exciting to be all by ourselves in the plane, but I was a little anxious when we arrived in California, and I was relieved to see Auntie Meg waiting for us. I must confess, because I was like, I'm going to the States and California, and it's huge, and what if she's not there, right? So we got to have supper over at her friend's house, and they all treated us like we were grown-ups and not little kids. Plus, I got to meet some of my cousins for the first time, and someone took the greatest picture of us play fighting around the front yard. Now, when I write, I just write. I don't necessarily use every single sentence later on, but I like having lots to say and then cutting things out later. It's just easier for me. It's not easy for everybody. If you're having trouble, some people, the problem is they just don't like, it makes their hand hurt to hold the pencil. You can always use your Google account and just use the text to speech, speech to text, and talk into it and have it right, and then kind of play with it later. So that's one thing you can kind of try and do. I find if you get really focused on making every sentence too perfect, it can get you like kind of frozen, like you get kind of scared and afraid to say anything. And I don't want that to happen because that can be really frustrating. Sometimes they call that writer's block, right? Okay, so I got this finished and I've got this whole long, just ridiculously long paragraph. It's so much, I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to leave it there. You should, if you want to, you can always pause and take a moment to read it. It sounds okay. I don't think it sounds great, but it's okay. What can I improve or eliminate? Okay, it is about 10 sentences long and I only need 7. So I could get rid of a couple if I want, but I could also get rid of them if I think they're not that interesting, right? I can add more too if I wanted to, right? Or choose more exciting words to make it more interesting. All of that is if I want, but the whole goal is to write the most interesting sentence you can, right? So here you can see I've crossed off different phrases that I didn't like and changed them to a different phrase. Sometimes I crossed off an entire sentence. I added some more description here because I thought this was kind of a little bit boring. I didn't really explain very well. So I like this. I changed my closing sentence a whole lot. And I'm just trying to give you an example of what you can do to make it different. I think I've got, okay, yeah, I will go ahead and read it. As a kid, I loved to travel with my parents each summer, but I was amazed the summer I got to travel without them. I still can't believe that our parents let me, a 12-year-old, and my cousin Kim, a 13-year-old, fly out of Canada all the way to California just to visit our fun-loving Auntie Meg. I got to visit my other aunt and uncle, who I rarely ever saw, as well as meeting some of my cousins for the first time. I don't remember everything we did, except for one vivid memory of us play fighting in the front yard. My aunt took Kim and I down to the ocean. The water was salty, the beach was beautiful, and the boardwalk full of colorful stores with trinkets that were so fun to walk along. Does that make sense there? Yep. It was worth the terrible sunburn that followed, with our legs so burnt we could barely stand to sit on the chairs at the fancy restaurant we went to afterwards. We visited lots of amusement parks, but the most spectacular was Disney World, with all the rides and rock music playing, and the most spectacular fireworks at night. We got to have supper over at her friend's house, and they all treated us like we were grown-ups and not little kids. I think the best part of the trip for me was how our aunt acted as if we were practically adults, including taking us to raunchy movies our parents were horrified to discover we had seen. Ooh, she got in trouble for that one. At a time in my life when I was terribly unhappy, all the events from that vacation gave me a lasting sense of being loved and appreciated that did not fade. And so there I'm kind of explaining why I chose that particular one. Like, yeah, going was amazing, but it was also like a very emotionally warm trip as far as that goes, not just kind of new and interesting. I am running out of time. Okay. I'm not going to reread it, but do the sentences make sense? That is the first thing to check. Read it over. The best bet, too, is to read it out loud. A lot of times when you're skipping kind of fast over something you wrote, you don't notice the mistakes, but if you say them out loud, you hear the mistakes and go, oh, wait, that doesn't sound right. The other thing you can do is have somebody else read it to you, and then you also might notice the mistakes even more. Now, this assignment specifically said that I needed to use pronouns and antecedents, and I realized I completely forgot. So I had to kind of go back and add some. This is one part of the assignment that isn't kind of natural, and I'm not normally deliberately adding pronouns, but they wanted us to do that to kind of get practice for that. So I've added a few for the sake of the assignment, and I'm just going to grab a sentence or two and fix it. So here I have, as a kid, I loved to travel with my parents each summer, but I was amazed the summer I got to travel without them. So them is referring back to parents. So that one works. I think the best part of the trip for me, so me refers back to I, was how our aunt acted as if we were practically adults, taking us to movies our parents were horrified to discover we had seen. So we, us, our, those are all talking about me and my cousin together. The problem is I don't have me and my cousin in this sentence, so that's a bit tricky there. I could, however, change it and fix it so that it does work. Aunt Meg treating Kim and I as if we were adults throughout the trip was an unexpected bonus. Aunt Meg even took us to see movies that our parents scolded her for letting us see. So I fixed the subject, so now it's a proper antecedent. Okay, so that is one example of how you can do this to meet the assignment. I've got a few more slides, but I've also run out of time.